Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man's Corner channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm kicking off my new nighttime Spooks reaction marathon for you guys. And the first video I'll be reacting to first is 5 True Mail Dash Post Office horror stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road in the back. Okay, here we go.
I've been a mailman for almost 10 years.
Okay.
For the past few years, I've had a walking route that I do every day. I live by the city, so there are some very large neighborhoods that I deliver mail to. I have a route that I go on, and I walk from one house to another with my large mail bag, dropping off the mail for each address. When the weather is nice, I really enjoy it because I get lots of good exercise from walking so much. In my entire time working the job, I've never been scared of anything, not even dogs.
You see, if I was a postal worker, I would rather deliver the mail while in my vehicle instead of doing a walking route like he's doing, because you never know, a stray dog could come up and attack you or somebody want to mug you. And plus, when you're in the vehicle, you just drop the mail off in the mailbox and just keep on going.
And that's mainly because I deliver in the morning time and not at night or anything. But one day, that all changed. I was delivering on my route through a very large neighborhood. There were tons of houses all pretty close to each other. So I was on the route, and at one point I came up to a house just like any other. The houses around there did not have mailboxes down by the street, but would instead be up next to the door of the house. So I walked up the steps to the front porch area with the mail ready to put it in the box. When I got there, I saw that the main door to the house was open and just the screen door was closed, so I could kind of see inside. There was a man standing not far away from the front door, and he looked over at me as I was walking up the steps. I just kind of nodded hello to him, and he seemed kind of surprised to see me. He didn't really react though, and then I stepped up towards the mailbox. However, when I was about to put the mail in, the man from inside suddenly spoke. He said, "Hey, can you just bring the mail inside here quick?" I said sure, and I opened the front door and stepped inside the house.
Red flag. This is almost the same scenario like I reacted to in the Amazon horror story video. If somebody is at the front door and they ask you to bring the package inside the house, I would just open up the door and just leave it right next to the door and not go any further, because you never know, these people might be insane and set up a trap for you.
After getting in, I saw the man, who was pretty tall and also large. He told me to set it on the kitchen table, which was about 10 feet away. I walked over and set the mail down, but as I was doing so, I heard the front door closing. I looked over and saw the man standing directly in front of it and facing me. He had a very serious and almost angry look on his face. Then I heard another man's voice from down the hallway somewhere in the house yell, "What's going on over there?" I was confused, but just wanted to leave and continue with my route. I started walking over to the man standing in front of the door. He wasn't moving at all though. Then I heard footsteps approaching from the hallway. I looked over and saw another man come walking into the room. He saw me and said, "The mailman, no." I looked around and asked if I could leave. The big guy said to me, "No, you ain't leaving." I had a bad feeling, and I had had a bad feeling ever since the guy shut the door. I looked around and saw a back door. It was kind of just an instinct, but I took off and started running for it. As soon as I did, both men started to chase after me. I was able to make it to the door, but when I stopped to open it, the smaller man caught up to me and tackled me to the ground. There was a brief struggle, and the big guy came over there as well. Honestly, my mind kind of went blank, and I don't fully remember what happened. I just know that somehow I was able to fight them off just long enough to get up and make it out the door. I took off running outside, and the men briefly chased after me, but I was faster than them, and I ran down the street far away. When I realized they were not chasing me anymore, I stopped and I called the police. Then I waited there for them to arrive. They went to the house, but the men were gone. It turns out, though, that neither of the men owned the house. They had broken in and were robbing it. That made a little more sense to me as to what happened. I had been very confused. Despite being shaken up, though, I was thankfully not injured and was able to continue with my route for the day. Several days later, the police located the men, who had done a string of robberies in the area. Looking back, I'm really glad that I made it out of there okay, and I'm glad that the men were caught.
And here I was thinking that it might have been the homeowners that were just nuts, wanted to kill somebody. But it turned out They're not even the homeowners, they were robbers. Probably wanted to knock out the mailman just so that there wouldn't be no witnesses to them robbing the place. But thank God he was smart enough to knock them other guys to the ground and get out the back door and run. But thankfully, he had the notion to call the cops and they found him. So that's good.
Something really strange and creepy happened to me once. This was back about 25 years ago or so. At the time, it was just my husband and I living in our house. We lived in a neighborhood with many other houses on it, but it was generally pretty quiet, especially at night. I remember one evening around 7 or 8 p.m., I was looking out of our front window for whatever reason. I noticed that there was a mail truck parked on the side of the road on the other side of the street. I didn't know what it was doing there. We had already received the mail earlier that day. Plus, something about the truck looked off, like the mail logo wasn't quite correct looking. To me, it seemed kind of suspicious. I didn't see anybody get out of it though, and I couldn't quite tell if anybody was inside.
It's not a real mail truck. Makes you wonder if somebody got a van and put mail service logos all over just to make it look like a mail truck, and they're trying to either stalk the neighborhood and see which house looks easy to rob, but I don't know. And I don't want to jump ahead with any of my conclusions just yet, so let's just continue on with the story, see what happens next. But all I know is it don't sound good.
Several hours later, and I looked again, and the truck was still there. I found that to be very odd. Our street was not really the type that would have cars parked on the side of it a whole lot. There wasn't really much that I could do about it, though. I know by the next morning, the truck was gone. So really I forgot about it until the next night, though. This time, the truck came back again. It was later than before, though. I was passing by the front window at probably 10 o'clock at night or so, maybe later. I noticed that the same mail truck was stopped on the side of the street. This time, though, I saw movement in the driver's area. Then the door opened and a man got out. He was wearing a jacket and a hat, as well as sunglasses and a backpack. It looked sort of strange. Then he walked up into the yard of the people who lived across the street from us. I watched as he went up to their front step, and then he kind of got out of my view. I knew he didn't live there, but I thought maybe he knew the neighbors and was visiting. Still, I kept watching, though. Soon the man appeared again walking down the yard. Then he crossed the street and entered our front yard. I quickly ducked down from the window. The man walked all the way up and then got to our front step. I could hear him there. There was a brief 2 knocks at the door before he turned and quickly walked away. I peeked out of the window to see the man walking back down, and then I saw him go into the next door neighbor's property. I then went and told my husband about what was going on. When he came to look, though, the man was out of sight. His mail truck was still there, though. My husband got curious and decided to go outside. I didn't know what he was going to do, and I told him not to go after the guy or anything because he might be dangerous. But when my husband opened the door, he realized that there was something on our front step. It was a single VHS tape. He brought it inside and showed it to me. This was a long time ago, so of course we had a VCR. We were both very curious as to what was on the tape, because it had no label or anything.
That is very strange. A man not even delivering packages is going around houses in the middle of the night, dropping off VHS tapes. And he would just do a slight knock at each door and leave. Yeah, something's fishy about this guy. I know he ain't a real postal worker, so they need to call the cops and get him over there before he leaves.
We put the tape in the VCR and pressed play. It started out looking like a home video taken from a video camera, and it was showing out the windshield of a car driving down the road at night. There were no sounds other than the driving sounds. This continued for about probably 5 minutes. Then the camera turned, and we could see part of the man's face. He was still wearing sunglasses and a hat, though, and only like half of his face was visible in the frame. He then started laughing in a really creepy way. This continued for an uncomfortable amount of time. It was enough to give my husband and I the creeps. Then it abruptly stopped. That was all that was on the tape. We looked outside, and the guy was still gone. We thought about calling the cops, but decided not to. A while later, the man returned to his mail truck vehicle and left. It looked as though maybe he was giving the videotapes to everybody who lived on our street. Why, though, I have no idea. After that night, he never came back. I never found out who the guy was or why he did that. Maybe it was just a strange and creepy prank. Either way, it really freaked me out.
If it was a prank, that is just messed up. You don't do that to people in the neighborhood, leaving tapes of yourself driving around somewhere. Now, I was thinking if he filmed their house when he went to that neighborhood and made a tape of it, then yeah, that would be like, okay, he's a stalker automatically. But then I don't get why in the world that they did not call the cops. I mean, I would have called them just to get them to investigate what that guy was doing. Was it a prank or was it somebody with sinister intentions? You just don't know.
I used to work at a post office for a few years. I have one story of something really crazy and almost unbelievable that happened. So, the post office that I worked at was fairly large. We were near a big city and we get a good amount of customers. Many people would come in to ship packages and things like that. Some people also had mailboxes with us there. I worked behind the counter helping customers, and then I would work in the back organizing packages and other parcels as well. One evening, I was working with my coworker Andrea. The two of us were working until past close, which was 6 p.m. So overall, things were pretty quiet that day. We had a few people come in here and there for whatever reason. By 5:30, things were very quiet. Andrea went into the back to do some work, and I stayed by the counter in case we got any more customers. Then, literally 5 minutes before closing time, this guy came in. He was wheeling in this really large box that was all taped up. He had one of those dollies that he was wheeling it in on. The man came up to me at the counter and said that he would like to mail the box. I told him sure, and I weighed and measured the box with the guy. It was really heavy, about 150 pounds, and I told the guy the price, which was pretty expensive.
Jeez Louise, 150 pounds? Sure, you might get a customer that will want to ship something that weighs that much, but it's usually like a miniature bronze statue or something very collectible. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's strange. But I bet you ain't one of those. It's something dangerous. Let's just see what happens next.
He gave me the address he was mailing it to, and the man then told me that inside of it was expensive gym equipment. Then I wheeled the package into the back, and the man left.
Okay, I can see that gym equipment. I don't know why you want to ship that through them. You could probably ship it through UPS.
Right after he left, I locked the doors, and we were closed. Then I went into the back with Andrea to finish working. We had some things to do, such as organizing parcels and whatnot. I remember that after about 20 or 30 minutes, we were just about done. I turned off some of the lights, and Andrea and I were talking a little bit near the doors right before leaving. Other than that, things were completely silent. Then, out of nowhere, we heard this sound. We were the only two there, so we had no clue as to what it could be. We walked over and looked to where the sound was coming from. The next thing we knew, we saw this guy inside the back room of the post office. He was standing up and fairly short and thin, wearing all black, and also had a ski mask on so we couldn't see his face. I had no idea where he had come from. Then I noticed the large box that the man had dropped off was wide open. The man had been inside of it. Neither of us knew what to do. The man just stood there for a moment, and then he started walking towards the front. He went over and left through the front door, leaving the post office entirely. Andrea called the police. She reported what happened, and we stayed there for a while, not knowing what was going on. When things finally calmed down, though, we were able to realize more of what had happened. There were surveillance tapes inside the post office. They would not get the identity of the man who was in the box because he had a mask on, but we did have the identity of the guy who tried to mail it. A few days later, I found out that they located both men. They had a plan to get the smaller guy in the post office, and then he was going to steal a bunch of packages, I guess. He was planning to leave the box after Andrea and I left, so he would have the whole mailroom to himself. However, he got hot and uncomfortable in the box, and also didn't hear very well from inside of it. He knew he was getting mailed right before we closed, so he figured that we had left already. Fortunately, we had not. That was by far the craziest thing that ever happened when I worked at the post office.
Well, them people's plan went sour. I don't know why I had a feeling that it might have been a person inside and not gym equipment, but I would have figured they were probably trying to do that mail themselves challenge. But nope. If it was somebody dressed all in black and they had a ski mask, they were planning on stealing something. I'm surprised he didn't go to the cash register to steal the cash instead of the packages. But yeah, that'll be a scary sight to see for sure.
A couple of years back, I lived in this one apartment building. I had a place on the first floor, and the complex was pretty average, I would say. I only lived there for a year, but towards the end of my lease, something strange happened. Most days, I would go down to the mailroom to check my mail. Because I was on the first floor, it wasn't that far of a walk, which was nice. One time, though, I saw that I had a letter in my mail. It had no return address, but was addressed to me, and it looked to be handwritten. I was curious, but thought maybe it was still an advertisement. I didn't know who would write me a physical letter, because most people just reach out online or over text. I had seen some of those spam mail letters that look like they're handwritten so that you'll read them, but then it's all just a scam. So I took the letter back to my apartment and opened it. Inside, it was not an ad but a written letter. However, it was very strange. It didn't really make much sense to me. The letter just said, "Hi, how are you?" and then said my name. Then it said, "Expect more mail from me soon." And that was it. The rest of the letter was blank. I had no idea who would send this to me or why. I just threw it away at that point. It seemed stupid. After that, though, maybe 2 days later, there was a small package for me in the mailroom. I hadn't ordered anything that I could recall, so I brought it to my place to see what it was.
Why do I get the feeling that the person that was sending her spam mail sent her a package? Because he said, expect to get more mail from me.
When I opened the box, it was completely empty. I didn't know what on earth was going on. Was somebody messing with me? Why? Then, several days after this, I got another package. Based on the handwriting of the address, it appeared to be from the same person again. This time, it was not empty, but had all these little fake spiders in it. It was gross. I disposed of that as well, and did not know what to make of this. I didn't really have any friends with that kind of a sense of humor. So, for a few days, I got nothing else. Then, I got another letter in the mail. This one said, "How are you enjoying my gifts to you?" Well, I could not answer them because I had no idea who was sending these things to me. By that point, I didn't have much longer in my lease. I wanted to move out as soon as possible. I got one more package from the person. This one was filled with candy hearts, but they were not in the package. Whoever sent this literally took several bags of candy hearts probably and dumped them straight into the box. And the box was basically completely full of them. It was so weird. I threw those away as well. After that, I only lived in the apartment for about another week. I never did find out who was behind those or why. Thankfully, at my new place, I haven't received any strange letters or packages.
This is why you should have hired a private detective and let them investigate to see who's sending them packages. I mean, that just don't make no sense. Why would you give her a box with nothing in it the first time, and then the next time is a bunch of candy hearts? So whoever's sending this stuff to her is a total wacko. But thank God that when she moved out to the new apartment, this guy didn't figure out where she lives at now. But I guarantee it was probably somebody living in the same apartment and was trying to impress her or something. Well, you scared the crap out of her, that's for sure. I mean, that would be strange just getting mail, but then when you open up a box, it's empty. And another box has candy. I mean, that's just weird. I wouldn't even touch the candy. I'd be afraid they put poison or razor blades in them. You just never know nowadays. But I'm just glad she moved out and didn't have to deal with that again.
I work for the U.S. Postal Service and am a mailman. I drive a mail delivery truck every day and deliver mail to houses as well as some apartments and businesses. I've had several different routes over the years. My craziest experience happened about 2 years ago now. My route at that time took me through this pretty nice neighborhood at one point. It wasn't like a super wealthy neighborhood or anything, but I just thought that it was a nice neighborhood. It had decent houses on both sides of the street, and it was never that crowded or busy overall. I enjoyed driving there, and the people seemed to be pretty nice. So one morning, I was making my deliveries. I would drive right up to the mailboxes and then just put the parcels right in the box and then continue on. So I reached one mailbox and I saw the house up ahead that would be the next one had a fairly short driveway and the garage door was open. As I finished putting the mail in the box that I was at, I slowly proceeded to the next mailbox. As I was doing so, I saw a man walking out from the garage of the house ahead, and he walked down the driveway towards the mailbox. The man had a beard, sort of long hair, and I remember that he was barefoot. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt though. He approached me as I was about to put the mail in his box. He told me that he would just take it and held out his hands. So I gave him the mail and told him to have a nice day, and then I drove on to the next house. I continued with my route and didn't really think anything more of it. The next day, just about the same thing happened. The guy, who was once again barefoot, walked down the driveway and took the mail directly from me. Then he walked back up the driveway and into the garage. I had never seen the guy before, but I didn't really pay that much attention to who lived where. I delivered to a ton of houses in the area. The next day, though, I got called by my supervisor and told that someone on my route was not receiving their mail. I was very confused because I knew that I had delivered to every address. I had been doing the job long enough to be confident that I had not made a mistake. I found out where exactly I was told they weren't getting their mail. I realized it was the barefoot guy who I had been handing the mail to. This made me angry because I was literally handing the mail right to the guy. I told my boss this, and he said that he would get back to me. A short time later, he told me that the homeowner never accepted the mail directly from me, and nobody else lived there. He told me that the guy who lived there is gone at work all day when the mail arrives. I was confused and thought that maybe his neighbor was stealing his mail or something. The next day at my route, I did not see the barefoot guy. I put the mail in the box and continued. Later on, I found out some crazy information from my boss. He told me that the guy who lived there said that a man had been secretly living in his garage without him knowing. After he heard about me handing the mail to a guy coming out of his garage, he went into the garage to look around. Apparently, that's when he found the guy living there. I guess the man rarely used his garage and hadn't been in it in weeks. After he saw the guy, he called the police, and the man was arrested for trespassing, and his mail was also in the garage. It was the craziest thing I ever heard. I was also relieved that I hadn't done anything wrong and wasn't in trouble. The guy who lived there actually called me personally to thank me, which I thought was really nice. At the end of the day, I'm really glad that I was able to help, and that the man living in the garage was caught without causing any major problems. That's been my craziest experience as a mailman.
Well, to be honest with you, if I was delivering packages as a mail person and I just saw somebody that looks scruffy looking, I would have not judged them. I probably would have thought they was the homeowner too. But then if you get calls to the post office and your manager confronts you about that, that's something wrong. And that would be fishy. But thankfully, the person that was missing his mail checked his garage and found that guy before he kept on taking other people's mail too. Turned out to be a homeless guy. I know now that guy is probably gonna keep his garage door locked tight so no one like him will get back in there again. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more nighttime spooks content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I say that's a wrap, and I'm the day.